Welcome to Stretford Paddock. Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now more than ever, we rely on the internet, whether that's streaming shows, streaming podcasts, speaking with loved ones, or of course, watching the football. Now more than ever, with our rapidly growing digital footprint, security is a huge concern. Thankfully though, Surfshark have got you covered because Surfshark VPN have got access to servers in loads of different countries, which means that you can change your virtual location to a place where the sport might be free to air, or there are different broadcasting rights, or even just being able to log in to your services from back home if you're abroad. Surfshark VPN also encrypts your online connection, making sure that all of your activities, including streaming matches, remains private and secure. And even if you're not just streaming football, whether it's the latest Netflix show or something on Amazon that you've been wanting to watch, you can watch it no matter where you are. And also, there's plenty of region exclusive stuff that you can get access to by changing your digital location. And by connecting to the optimized servers provided by Surfshark VPN, you may actually get faster streaming speeds and reduced buffering, so you're not going to be waiting ages to see if that last minute shot actually went in. Overall, Surfshark VPN offers you the best flexibility, security, and accessibility to all the streaming and shows you could possibly want, making it the best choice for streaming. And currently Surfshark have a phenomenal deal on. Using the code Paddock, which is easy to remember, you get 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go and check out the link in the description. And thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring the show. Right. We've got a lot to talk about today. There's good and bad in the last week. Since we last did this podcast, we've had one of the most exceptional, ecstatic moments we've ever had as Man United fans. And then we've had business as usual, losing to Wolves at home on the weekend. Yeah? It's been Man United in a week. Yeah. It's sort of summed up the last 10 years, hasn't it? We've had these incredible moments, but generally speaking, where your bread's buttered at home in the league, not good enough. And one player that I think has had a lot of attention, maybe a disproportionate amount of attention, because Onana's happened to sort of, pull his socks up a little bit this week. A lot of the eyes have been on Rasmus Hojlund, and I want to talk about him. I want to get into him, his form, and most importantly, I think his future at Manchester United. So we're going to get into it. Obviously, in the comments, get in there as well. Give us your thoughts on Rasmus Hojlund. I want to start, first of all, by sort of each having a minute or two, just to lay out your current thoughts and your current opinion on Rasmus Hojlund. Him as a player, the value that we paid for him, his potential impact and effect on Man United going forward, and his ability to lead the line going forward. So I'll start with you, Ronaldo. I saw you tweeting a lot about him over the weekend. Not necessarily the most favourable things, not loving his performance at the weekend or this season. So where are you currently at with Rasmus Hojlund?
Yeah, because I was one of those, like many of us when he came in, I was quite enamoured with him in terms of his profile and the idea of what Rasmus Hojlund could be. Yeah. But I think that's basically what's materialised when it comes with Rasmus, is for the idea of him is better than what we actually see from a production perspective. And then I do see I feel like we've got a large enough sample size now where I think he's not. I don't see the elite striker that we need, and it's not even merely about that. I know he's obviously 22 years old, and people would say he's got age on his side and he's got time on his side. I just think there's an aspect of it where United may not have the time to allow him. I think if he probably becomes better when he's 26, 27, are United in a situation, in a stage where we can have basically a project centre forward leading the line for 4 years? Can we also be able to take the risk on him potentially getting worse and his value even diminishing further? Because at the age he's at now, it could be a situation where if you are looking to sell him, United being a little bit of a graveyard, and that's how it's kind of seen in the football arena. Some teams might still see Hojlund as someone that they could make better, or they could say he could be better for us, he could become elite for us. But from what I'm seeing at United, I think there's too many holes in his game. And also I looked at his last 40 shots, because that became a little bit of a trend on Twitter as well. His ball striking's actually very unclean as well, which is a bit of a problem if you're a centre forward, and that was meant to be one of his best traits when he came from Atalanta as well. And then you're thinking about pace and speed and power. Not really seen him utilise that too often or too much against Premier League level centre backs and defenders. So then it comes down to like box movement and instincts, and that's probably where he lacks the worst. And I don't know if that's something that people kind of develop. I think you kind of either have it or you don't. And then you see him absolutely devoid of confidence. I think it looks to me like he's almost checked out for me.
Well, you said yesterday on X, and I'm not trying to catch you in anything here, but just to kind of, you said respectfully it's over for Hojlund, and you said on there, similar to what you just said then, he's given up as well. You can see it. Obviously that's during the game, heat of the moment, but do you stand by that? I think it's over for him at United? It
almost looks to me as a combination of someone that's got no confidence, obviously, but I don't look at him and feel like he's working hard and he's working his socks off and he's trying. He almost looks like he's almost like semi gave up a little bit, and I don't know whether I know in the football world it comes to the April and May, and you're not sure where your future lies.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could already be involved in agent talking to other teams, etc. And he might think that, or might have been told that he might be looking to be either moved on and loaned. So then you can almost go out and he can be like semi having that in the back of your mind, and it could end up being like you end up being a little bit more lethargic and a bit more. I'm not really asked too much anymore. I know that's kind of harsh to say because it's hard to quantify that, and it's hard to actually say that for sure. But I just look at a player and thinks lacking the quality required, not really working hard, just not really doing the right things, and just looks like he's a shell of a player that's needed to be playing up front. And I think too often we've seen other players in less time play up front and then getting a lot more out of him. So I feel like you're almost running out of the service excuse, because that was one of the common excuses, that he doesn't get enough service.
We'll get into the service and the teammates and the situation. But Jay, 8 goals in 45 games or 45 appearances this season, and 5 of those have come in the Europa League in 12 appearances. Where do you stand with Hojlund currently?
I agree with a lot of what Ronnie said, and I don't like sitting on the fence with anything, but I'm sort of edging more towards Ronnie than I think you're going to sort of defend Hojlund. But I still feel like I've not given up completely on Rasmus Hojlund just yet.
Yeah.
I am worried. I see Rasmus Hojlund, I don't know if it is a confidence thing, but one thing that really troubles me about him is some of his movement. I think he makes bad decisions off the ball. I think sometimes I'm like, why is he not in that space? Why is he doing that? What's going through his mind? And is that just his head's gone a little bit? But I think we have to remember as well, in the Europa League, we haven't got Chido Obe. We haven't got Joshua Zirkzee, who's injured. We are probably going to use Rasmus Hojlund against Athletic Club. Mm-hmm. That is going to happen, whether it's off the bench or as a starter. We need him. We do. We need him to step up. So as a fan, I'm going to try and get behind him and say, look, come on, we need you. We need you to turn up. You've got a good goal scoring record in the Europa League this season. Show us what you're about in that competition in particular, because that is United's season in a nutshell. That is it. We haven't, well, not even in a nutshell, but that is it. We get beaten in that semi-final, even we lose the final. It's catastrophic, really, in terms of what the season's going to look like for the manager. There's no European football, certainly no Champions League football next season. We won't have won out, obviously. So we do need to step up. I do feel a little bit sorry for him in some respects in terms of service. At times, I understand Ronnie's point. It's not all about service. At times, though, he has had poor service. And I always think it's not a case of him not showing enough effort. I think it's not a case of working harder. I think he's working smarter. I think sometimes he's sort of exuding too much energy and wasting too much energy on things he shouldn't be doing. And he needs to start sort of, I don't know whether he needs a bit more coaching or whatever it is. He needs to be a little bit smarter in his movement in particular. I know, but I see him like getting involved in tussles he doesn't need to, making runs that are almost getting in other people's ways at times. And I think, what are you doing? What's going on with this guy? Because in that first season, even when he wasn't scoring, I quite enjoyed him. I quite enjoyed watching him. I thought, remember when he came on against Arsenal and he got stuck in and I was like, yeah, this kid looks like he's got a bit of something. And then he went on that purple patch in the Champions League, and we stuck with him, didn't we, in the Premier League? We all kept saying the same thing on this podcast. There's a player there, don't worry, the goals will come. And then he had that mad purple patch, didn't he, where he scored 7 goals in 6 games, whatever it was. Everyone was like, relax, okay, he's got to 10 Premier League goals, whatever it, however long it took him. And then towards the end of the season, by the time he get to the cup final, the managers dropped him, didn't trust him enough to start.
He had that injury, didn't he, after that run of goals?
Maybe that was
never really got back
maybe
to
that
form,
was played a part, but certainly he didn't start the final. He was available. Right, he didn't start, which was a big call for the manager and obviously one that paid dividends. So this season, you want to see more from him. I want to see more than 10 goals in the Premier League. I want to see more than 16 goals in all competitions. And we haven't seen more. We've seen less. Mm-hmm. So I am concerned. The 2 things I think he's got going for him. One, we need him this season, so he's got a chance to turn up and do something. And if he can help us win a trophy and help us get the Champions League, then the fans will be more than happy with him. And the other thing he's got is, if we are going to bring in another striker, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get rid of Rasmus Hojlund. It might mean that he's becoming our second choice striker, which might even be a good role for him. It might be a good role if Liam Delap, say for example, just using that name, comes in, we don't bring any more strikers in, and the manager goes, Liam Delap's my number one, but when he's injured, then I'm going to bring you in. Maybe that's a role where he can flourish at United. That's
true. Can I ask you a couple of things on that, Jay? I want to ask you two, because obviously I feel like Manchester United in the footballing world seems to suffer the most from the whole sunken cost fallacy thing, where it's like, I think other big clubs are a lot more cutthroat with, if they've made an investment and they don't see it working within 1 or 2 years, they usually cut the losses and sell, and a lot more ruthless in that way. And these are all teams and squad and clubs that have done a lot better than United have over the last 10 years.
Yep.
I think United is the one club where it seems like it's always, they might get better. Let's wait. And it's this massive waiting game and this kind of hopium almost. And I think United need to become a little bit more. Obviously, there's a limit. There's a balance that's probably needed to be struck. But I think United do need to become a little bit more ruthless. It's always, they're only 22, they're only 23, they're not near the peak yet. We've paid. Let's wait. Do you know what I mean? And it's sometimes, I think United just need to be a little bit. I think the fan base is actually quite similar. I think the fan base are actually quite patient with players, to be fair, for the most part. But sometimes I think nowadays it's become such a results game business, and you can actually end up falling so far behind. I think we need to be a little bit more ruthless, and I think that could start with Hojlund being sold.
The one worry I do have, which sort of echoes what Ronnie's saying, is I think that if we do hold on to him, if we are talking about whether he goes or not, and he has another season next season like this season, you are going to struggle to get almost anything for him, because if he's had 2 bad seasons where it's not happened for him and he's a year older, and there might be an issue there. So it almost might be, if you were to move him on this summer, is that going to be the best time to move him on? I just do have some concerns about the fact that you've got Zirkzee, who's not a striker, you've got Cheeto, who's 17 years old, and then you've got the one guy who is a striker. You get rid of him and bring someone else in, okay, that's great. But if that person gets injured, then you've got...
And then you've got they're in the same position that Hojlund finds himself in. Yeah, that's my only... I think I'm slightly more in favour of him than you two are. And not because I think I've watched a fantastic striker put in great performances this season. I'm not... I like to think I'm not deluded. I don't think he's been amazing, and I don't understand what you're saying. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But I think that the situation that he's found himself in is uniquely terrible as far as joining Manchester United. I also think he's a part of that situation, so it's not like he hasn't, been stirred into that soup, and the reason it tastes like shit partly is because of him. Yeah. But he's also in a team where, like you said, if we're looking at players who have had a bad season that we could probably do with moving on now, you're looking at 7 or 8 players there where, now's probably the time to sell Onana, to be honest. Now's probably the time. I know it's not been bad on the pitch, but now's probably the time to get rid of Luke Shaw. Now might be the time to get rid of Mason Mount. Now might be the time to get rid of Zirkzee, if we're being harsh. Now might be the time to get rid of Garnacho. There's a lot of players that fall under that category of, if they have another season like this season, we'll get nothing for them. And obviously, Hojlund is firmly within it.
Should be a 2-season rule then?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. I think it has to be player by player. I do think that last season wasn't a great season. There were barren spells, there were tough games, there were moments where he looked a little bit amateurish, but I do think that generally speaking, last season looked like a promising young striker's first season at a new club. I think it made sense as a season. This season is a really poor season, but I don't think you can necessarily rule a player out for having a poor season. I don't think he's going to be a world-class player. I don't think he's going to go on to be Haaland, and I know his name sounds the same and from a similar part of the world. They've both got blonde hair, tall, quick. There's all those comparisons that were kind of built into him as a player. He's never going to be Erling Haaland. He just isn't. He's not good enough. He's not that kind of level. But he could be a serviceable 15 to 20 plus-ish goals a season striker. That is something we haven't had for a long time. We haven't had a consistent striker, and not that he's proven himself to be consistent, but I think that would be his level if he can get there. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but his age, I think the fact that United are so bad at the moment, last season we really struggled under Ten Hag, and last season we got the same amount of goals roughly as we've been getting for the last few years. We're in that sort of 55 to 60 bracket where we've been for 3 or 4 years now. This season is a massive drop off from that. And obviously he's only got 3 league goals this season, 8 in all competitions. So he's a part of that drop off. But we've scored like 15 to 20 goals less this season than we did last season. And it's not all on him, but we are in a team that is awful. And I feel a little bit sorry for him for that. I look at, like you said, Ronaldo, on paper, he's got some decent attributes. He's quick, although he doesn't feel that quick at the minute, but he's got good size to him. He can hit the ball well when he's confident. His last 40 shots, I agree, look a bit... He's snatching at stuff, he's swinging at stuff, he doesn't look like himself, he's not shifting the ball into good areas well.
6'3", but can't win headers, can't win duels.
There's massive limitations there, and I do worry about him. I don't think, like I said, I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. I don't think he's playing great, and you guys can't see it. But since he's joined Man United, he's played 5,800 minutes, which is just under 65 games. Now, obviously, he's come off and come on, but Bruno Fernandes, when you look at his appearances, he's playing basically 90 minutes in all of them. So, like, he has a lot more time to get goals, get assists, and obviously they're not in the same category. But in that time, so it's the equivalent of 65 games, he's got 24 goals for United. Now, it's not good enough, and it actually is 88 appearances, so I'll be transparent about how many times he's actually been on the pitch. But he's been on the pitch for 5,800 minutes and got 24 goals. It's not good enough, but it's not horrific. It's not like, Weghorst got, 1 goal? 2 goals in 6 months. It feels bad, but it's not that bad. There are signs there.
It's the context of that, though, because that worries me even more. Because those stats you just threw at me weren't that bad. So when I see he's got 1 in his last 28, that worries me a lot. Because when you put it like that, I think, Jesus Christ, if at one point he had 23 goals in
50,
then that's the benchmark that we all sort of go. A goal every other game is good enough.
I think my judgment
on... So if he was on that and now we're at...
But he's having... I think he's having a bad season. Yeah. And I think players have bad seasons.
I think the concern about him, though, because when you talk, obviously you mentioned in stats, it's not just output related.
No, well, that's what I want to get into the details of it.
Eye test performance related as well.
That's the one thing, even though I have backed him to a degree, that's the concerning thing for me as well, is when... I think I see it, I notice a little bit more at the game when I'm sort of watching him off the ball and I'm thinking, I don't know anything about football. We all know that, right? I'm a complete layman. I listen to him all the time. He tells me things I don't realise. But even I can see at times, that's not the right run. What are you doing? Why is he not there when he should be? Even I can see that. And I think that the coaches and whoever at Manchester United must know that as well. They must sort of say to him, look, come on.
It's because obviously you can't really discredit him for it, but when he did have that purple patch, how many consecutive games did he score?
Like 6 or 7.
I think was it 7 goals in 6 games?
7 goals in 6 games, but wasn't also not from like 8 shots or something absolutely ridiculous?
Yeah.
So that's like prototypical purple patch, unsustainable. Type of run
that he's going to
score.
You know what I mean?
So like,
but a lot of players will do that.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So like, it's like
that's common.
I think
so. It's more like if you're looking at Hojlund, you think, what's a more accurate representation of him? Scoring 7 goals in 8 shots or whatever it was that he did, or 1 goal in 28. Like, what's actually more of an accurate representation?
But I don't think you have to ask that question. Personally, I don't think he's ever going to be. Never scores again because actually those 28 games were what he's really like. So that'll be the next 5 years of his career. But also, of course, he's not going to be a goal per shot either. I think hopefully he finds somewhere in between.
Streaky.
Yeah, and maybe be a little bit streaky. I think a lot of strikers are, especially those ones below that kind of top class level. You look at some of the names in the last sort of decade or so that have done well in the Premier League, but never 25, 30 goals. You look like the likes of Ivan Toney or Chris Wood or players like that. There's many of them, and they'll go through spells and they'll have 3 months where they get 2 goals, and then they'll have 3 months where they get 15 goals, and most strikers are like that. Other than the elite players who get a goal every 150 minutes, no matter what. A lot of strikers are like that, and I don't think he's going to be a world-class player. And maybe there's a brutal honesty where you go, you cost 70 million, you're never going to be 70 million's worth of player, get rid. And if that's your argument, I'm not going to disagree with that. And I think he's very much on thin ice here. I don't think he's proving me right by any means. But I do think that ruling him out right now, I don't think is fair. You look at the players around him. The best attacker at Manchester United is Marcus Rashford. That's without question. I mean, assuming you consider Bruno midfielder, which I do. Man United's best attacker on our books is Marcus Rashford. No one has ever put the numbers up in 2 or 3 seasons of his career that he's had at United anything like him. What was it? 23 goals, 22 goals, and 30 goals. He's had no one's got anywhere close to that. Garnacho never has. Ahmad never has. Hojlund never has. Zirkzee never has.
Yeah, because I think even this season Rashford's got more goals and assists than
any United
all
attacker.
Our attackers.
Yeah. So he's our best, not just our best goal scorer, but probably our best creator, other than maybe Ahmad. If now we've seen a bit more from Ahmad. So he's not even there. He's not there to link up with Hojlund. He's like Zirkzee has barely scored this season. Garnacho has barely scored this season. Again, he's had clusters of that Barnsley game where he got 4 goals and assists in one game. He's had certain moments where he's looked really good.
He's playing so much football,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they all are, and none of them are scoring.
Separate convo.
Other than Bruno Fernandes,
I agree.
no one is getting goals or assists at Man United anymore. And maybe none of them are good enough. But also, maybe the circumstances are just that bad that we're seeing the worst of everyone. And I think of all of the attackers, Garnacho is really unfortunate because he was an academy player. He is the most sellable asset that we have. Other than Kobe Mainoo, who I think there'd be riots in the streets if we sold him. I think Garnacho is the most sellable player in the squad, because if you can get anywhere near 40 or more for him, that equates to like 100 million.
Because people this season have kind of lumped Garnacho and Hojlund as almost like the undesirable twins, almost like in terms of performance. But I've never quite seen it like that. I've always thought Garnacho's probably a little bit above him. Probably above. I
would agree.
I've always had a preference for him, because even when I do starting 11s, people are like, "Why are you starting Garnacho, not Hojlund?" I said I'd much rather start Garnacho week in week out than Hojlund anyway.
Yeah.
And but also it's one of them where it's the reliance on him in terms of, we're talking about minutes and talking about the fact that when they're not in form, they're still having to play, because United have got Anthony on loan and Sancho on loan and Rashford on loan, and there's no other attackers to kind of like set it a load. Garnacho plays 100 minutes on Thursday and then plays 90 minutes more or less yesterday. And the way I'm worried about him because the way he plays as well. He's quite a relentless runner. He's got a big engine. He's got mad speed, endurance. There's
a lot of sprinting.
There's a lot of sprint, and then it's like, as a young lad as well, and I think he's approaching 150 games for United. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to think about his longevity when the people are kind of hanging their hopes on the fact that Garnacho becomes this elite player in like 5 or 6 years. You just got to hope he doesn't burn out too soon, but you just never know. But back to Hojlund, it's like, it is a difficult one, because I think what we have here at this club is there's this concern that you sell a player and they go out and smash it elsewhere, and then there's that element of regret. But then you also end up running the risk of like holding on to a player too long, hoping that they come good, and they don't. Then by the time you actually have poor performances, basically infecting the squad for a few years, and then by the time you actually end up having to sell him, you don't really get much return on your investment.
Donny van der Beek style.
Yes, and then you got to start. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, what did we get for Donny van der Beek?
Because think about
12 million quid.
Because ask yourselves this: what happens more often at Manchester United? It's, you look at a player, when a player leaves, it always feels like, fucking hell, finally.
Yeah.
Like, finally they've sold. Finally they've gone. Yeah. Finally we've sold him. When do we ever sell a player or get rid of a player and be like, shit, we got rid of him a bit too soon?
We shouldn't have got rid of him.
Do you know what I mean? It never happens. It's always like, I think a player either leaves or gets sold like a season or two late at Manchester United. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't.
Actually, look at this.
I agree.
Donny van der Beek, we sold him for 500 grand.
It wasn't much at all. It was pennies. Yeah.
Which could later rise to 9 million euros. But like, you look at that, you've lost there.
We bought him for 40 million.
90% of his value in 2 or 3 years, and you're right. That
it was a red flag when it was one of the days we woke up on a Monday. No previous links.
Yeah, and
was it?
Yeah.
A note from
Edwin van der Sar saying look after him.
Yeah,
and we had.
Wasn't there like no saga or nothing?
No,
it
was nothing. It was literally, we were covering every single sort of transfer rumour going. That one never came up anywhere, and it was done
on the day. Yeah,
it was literally like we've got him. It was quicker than the Cristiano Ronaldo one me and you covered. And it was just like it was done. I think part of the problem with Hojlund, just going back to him before you get into comments. I think now people are looking back to his time before he got to United and going, the amount we paid for someone who scored 9 Serie A goals at Atalanta.
Yeah.
You know, did we overpay for him? Did we go too soon? Was it too much? It's not his fault there was this connection or this hype around him and this sort of comparison with Erling Haaland, which did happen, was a thing.
Yeah.
People getting overexcited because, and it's so idiotic to compare someone because they've got a similar-ish name and the same hair colour and they're from a country nearby.
But that
happened. It did.
It did happen.
It genuinely, you're right. It completely did. Which is obviously when you look at it, is nonsense. But that's what happened, and people go, oh, you know what? We might have our own Hojlund and all, Haaland, sorry, and all the rest of it. But now people going, nah, you know, 9 Serie A goals, 72 million quid. Could have got Harry Kane. We get this kid instead. He does okay in his first season, but then this season he's fell off a cliff. And then people just saying, is this just another massive, massive blunder from Manchester United at a time when we made quite a lot of them? You mentioned a lot of them earlier. Onana looks like we made a bit of a mistake there. I hope I'm proven wrong. Mason Mount, you've been out on that, and I agree with you. 55 million quid for a player that was out of contract 8.5 months later, who's done really nothing since he arrived. I know he's had injuries, it's not his fault he's got injured, but he hasn't done out.
No.
Then you throw in as well Rasmus Hojlund. That's what, I think 150, 160 million quid maybe, around that figure we've spent on those 3 players. And all 3 of them are flawed, if I'm being kind.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And then we can throw in Anthony. Thankfully, he only cost, what, 80 million euros?
90 million euros.
90 million euros, forgive me. So that's 220 million quid
So
wrong.
think about how much money is this?
That are completely, not completely, but many of whom are borderline useless.
How much money is this? Let's try and add it up. So, Donny van de Beek.
God, we're going
for
back now.
35 million quid.
Sancho.
Actually, let's do euros. 40 million euros. Add 75 million euros.
So, Donny van de Beek, Sancho, Anthony.
90.
90.
What?
Mason Mount.
60.
Say Rasmus Hojlund.
70.
We'll just
Onana.
leave it. There's Onana.
50. Do you do that?
We'll just do them.
Do you want to get 385 million euros?
385 million euros on that, by the way.
Do you know what? If it wasn't for
So think about where United would be if they were given 385 million euros for recruitment, and they've hit on that's 6 transfers, and they hit on 4 of 6.
Yeah.
Think about the difference where United could be.
We would be challenging for Europe, not necessarily Champions League, but we would have bridged that 12, 15 point gap there if you'd have got a striker that scores you minimum 10 league goals a season, a goalkeeper that is bang average, or consistently bang average. That's the thing with Onana. He's either really good, playing out from the back, pulling out really good saves, or just catastrophic way too often. You put a consistently average goalkeeper in there. The thing is, you spend 90 million euros on a winger, you expect you're going to get someone at least the level of at least a Luis Diaz. Do you know what I mean? At least a Jota, at least a 8 to 12 goals a season, technically proficient, consistent kind of player. We've not even managed that. And I think, Luis Diaz, I mentioned it before, he happened to score against United, but he's a alright, good winger.
Because even team like Arsenal,
we haven't got anyone like that.
Arsenal spent, 25-30 million on Trossard.
Yeah.
And Arsenal have got so much more at Trossard
I'd take him over Anthony.
Than United got of £90 million.
Or even out of Sancho. Arsenal got more out of Trossard than we've got out of Anthony and Sancho put together, and that's 160 million euros worth of players.
It's scandalous. It is scandalous. That's one of the things that used to worry me a little bit about when we was selling Marcus. I was worried that for all his faults, he did put some decent numbers up in a lot of seasons, and it's like, okay, get rid of them. Look, we've spent up 200 million quid on the other side of that attack, and we haven't got anyone who's any good.
Yeah.
And obviously things have changed now. We have to move Marcus on. What are the comments saying? Sorry.
Yeah, there's loads of comments. Obviously, talking generally about the transfers, talking about Hojlund. I'll talk about some of the Hojlund stuff. So Colin Wilmot is in the chat all the time. Cheers, mate. Says Rasmus is done. He's either static or slow with his movement. He doesn't seem to have a football brain. We need an upgrade urgently. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but because they're obviously 2 different things. But when you hear Rasmus speak in interviews, even the little remarks on his Instagram, he's clearly a bloke with a brain. He's clearly someone that can speak. He's intelligent. You think he would be capable of learning, but football, brain, and humour or intelligence off the pitch are just 2 completely different things, aren't they? They are. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you think.
Don't tell me. Show me.
Yeah, exactly. And he seems like a normal, decent, relatively. I don't know how smart he is, but he talks like a normal person. You'd think if someone sat down with him and went, right, these 4 things we're working on between now and the end of the season. You do this run here, you do this run there.
He's smart.
Rasmus Hojlund?
Yeah.
I don't know, he speaks 2 languages at least, doesn't he? He's got to have some level of
but
intelligence.
like, you know, like his little quips and his jokes and stuff.
Interested.
Yeah, like...
Shut up. He likes racing cars. No, but like, you think you'd be able to learn, like, here's the run you make, here's the cut inside you make, when you're here you do this, when you're there you do that. Like, just a few basics, but he doesn't seem, that's the problem.
The one thing that Rasmus Hojlund's got...
He's not Delo slow, is he?
Yeah, like...
Up there.
I don't know though, and also football and intelligence.
And that's not great because everyone knows no one vouches for Delo.
You've been a card carrying member of the Delo fan club ever since he made his debut. I think before like physically, he looks like that's what you'd want from a striker. Yeah. He's relatively quick, he's strong, so there's something there to work with.
Yeah.
I just feel that my worry is, like Ronnie's saying, was the outlier the purple patch we saw, or the couple of purple patches we've seen in the Champions League beginning last season and around Christmas time in the Premier League, was that the outlier, or was that the norm? And this is just because he's lost all his confidence that this is the outlier, this is the real Rasmus Hojlund, or is actually this more accurately the real Rasmus Hojlund? And what we saw was just a player that hit a bit of peak form that he's never really going to create again for Manchester United, and we need to cut our losses. I'm slightly more in your camp where I think there's a player there, but I'm not quite as sort of confident as you are.
The reason why I feel like...
Go on.
Sorry.
I think the one problem that does seem to be the case with Hojlund is he's not going to be a striker that was worth 70 million.
No, he isn't, and that's not his fault.
And that's going to be something that might, for me, be one of the biggest problems. Is that's going to be a weight round his neck for the rest of his career. That price tag.
And PSR FFP wise, as people tell me, you're gonna United even selling likes of Mount and Hojlund. United are gonna take a loss.
Yeah,
significant loss on them both, which is unfortunate. So it's like almost it's hard, isn't it? I know, like United, big club, it's hard sometimes to cut your losses on big investments, but I feel like United don't have. Do United have the time for when Hojlund might be good? Do you know what I mean? And it's like. Do you loan him out, and then you've got a £72 million investment that's on your books that's playing for another club for a year? It's just a bit of a difficult situation, and then it's got this domino effect now as well, where like then you've got to throw in a 17-year-old who might or might not be ready, and Cheetah will be.
And are we hurting his future as well? By the way, in all of this, by bringing him in bad situations when maybe he literally turned 17 in like November or something.
It wasn't long ago.
He should have at least another 12 months.
We're not a great
almost exclusively playing for the academy.
United haven't been a good club for youngsters to break into, because there's quite a lot of pressure and accountability and responsibility put on them very fast, and sometimes it can lead to expectations that they can't always live up to, which people do remind me of when I'm critical of Garnacho. And because when I'm looking around and looking at likes of Liverpool, and you're looking at likes of City, you talk about it sometimes, and you're looking at Arsenal as well. It does make a difference when youngsters are going into teams that have like a really solid framework and they've got a bit of leadership there, and it does help when you look at the likes of Lewis Skelly and Ranieri as like 17, 18-year-olds going into a solid team. Obviously, they have to be of a level, though. So there's a flip side of it. To get into the team and get the minutes, they've got to be of a level. You're looking at even like Nico O'Reilly at City now, who's apparently he's flying for them. And it's like, he's going into it, do you know what I mean? So, but
there's it works both ways as well, though, because like you said, when you're going into a team like that, like if John O'Shea came through at Manchester United now, I don't think he plays nearly 400 games for us. Do you know what I mean? Because he was a sort of a, what would the word be? He's a solid, consistent utility player who wasn't exceptionally quick, wasn't a Rio Ferdinand style predicting the game, reading the game, wasn't a Vidic brute, wasn't a up and down.
A decent tech.
Decent.
John O'Shea.
Decent
technical, but he was all right.
His highlights reel is as good as anyone's in world football.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, genuinely, Megan Figo scoring a winner in the last minute in front of the Kop, going in goal and keeping a clean sheet at Spurs.
That
little chip for Booth.
I actually don't know. You know what's
amazing scenes.
You know what's mad? I actually sometimes disagree when people talk about that, when they likes of like Darren Fletcher and John O'Shea, and even sometimes you like see Tom Cleverley and your Andersons, whatever. But like this whole they wouldn't start today and play as many minutes. I think it's just because the standard and the quality of our teams back then was so high that these players probably looked a little bit lesser than they actually were. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that. Do you know what I mean? Because I saw it like even last year? Like someone was arguing, there's a massive thing on Twitter, people was arguing that McTominay was like a much better player than was Darren Fletcher.
That's nonsense.
No, do you know what I mean? But I always thought Darren Fletcher was a decent player.
No, it was. Let's have it right. I think in 2009, people were saying rightly or wrongly that him getting suspended for that Champions League final is what cost us. Now that's a different argument for a different day, but the fact that there was even a discussion shows you the levels he was at. I mean, if you look at that run up to the final, the Arsenal's, was it the semi-final against Arsenal, I think, where he got sent off unfairly, VAR would have overseen it. It was phenomenal. Like,
and I'm not. And that wasn't me trying to go out of my way to.
Sorry, 2008. That was when we went on to win it. Darren Fletcher was very unlucky because he didn't make the squad in that season. He was in the squad the next season, and then he was suspended for the final because he got a red card at Arsenal when we were already 4-0 up, whatever it was.
Yeah, and that wasn't me trying to insult John O'Shea, by the way, who I thought.
I get your point.
But you've got to look at the environment players come through, and sometimes maybe Hojlund could be a different player if he was coming through at Arsenal right now, where they need a striker and they've got a really good team around him, and maybe he's not playing every week, he's coming in and out, he's playing this game and that game or whatever. Maybe he'd get 12 goals from this season and that'd be enough to be excited. He's building confidence, and sometimes players just, your confidence gets crushed. Like Jadon Sancho, I believe there is an alternate reality where he either stayed in Germany or went to a different team or went to La Liga or somewhere and is considered one of the better wingers in European football still to this day. But I don't think he'll ever get back there now. And I think sometimes moves and timings can really, really hurt people's careers. I think that's one of the reasons why players leave United and don't really go on to great things. Not just because we've bought the wrong players and they were never good enough fundamentally, but you're also selling the worst, most broken version of that player and then asking them to rebuild after they've dropped from the peak that is Man United or there, theoretically. Like, go and play for Celta Vigo and prove to us how good you are. It's never going to happen. So I think it's all one thing affects another thing, and I think maybe Hojlund has been too badly affected by the last 18 months, and maybe he'll never amount to anything now.
Do you know what deals like this do as well?
I feel bad for him.
I get that.
United,
I do feel sorry for him, especially when you can tell the crowd are on him. You can sense it, the groans and everything, and even not more than groans at some points as well. It's literally shouting at him. He just, I feel like
was it quite booing like Zirkzee got though?
No, it wasn't. It was just that kind of thing. I just feel like he needs a Harry Maguire moment, doesn't he? He needs something like that, because a goal against Leicester ain't that. He needs a big goal in a big game. The only games we've got left that are big are the Europa League ones. So score against Athletic Club and
he's the type of striker as well who he doesn't do a lot if he's not scoring. Like, he's got more goals and more assists than Zirkzee this season. But you would never think of it. You never think that based on public opinion, because Zirkzee, he's good on the ball. He's a lot more technical. He can carry the ball. He's got this sort of, what's the word? Almost kind of magical quality to him at times.
What do you say, aura?
Nah, I don't say aura.
I don't either.
I'm not down with the kids.
But he's got something about him. When you watch him, you go, it makes you smile. Hojlund isn't a make you smile kind of player unless he's scoring. But Zirkzee's, all those things I've just described, haven't amounted to United winning more games or scoring more goals or getting more assists.
Because I think Zirkzee's a better footballer.
I think he is a better footballer, definitely. But I think, again, it depends on who you are, how much it costs to get you here, why you're here, where you play. All those things factor into it.
It's just mad. It's like, even the other night, on Thursday night, it's like, Zirkzee still comes out of it, I think, looking good, because Manu did his celebration and everyone's like, oh.
Yeah, it's good. He almost did it better.
And then it's like, he's on socials and everything, and you feel like, there's a lot of love for Zirkzee, which, as Ronnie pointed out, it was, far from the case against Newcastle at Old Trafford. Whereas Hojlund still doesn't seem like he has many.
No, and
there's still a place for aesthetic footballers, man.
Of course.
I know, because people argue people argue the old like aesthetics versus actual production type of thing. Sometimes players are good enough to have both, but sometimes football is still an entertainment business, man. Sometimes having one or two mavericks, maybe one or like aesthetically nice looking players, I guess, in terms of like play style, etc. But there's always, I feel like sometimes there is a bit of a place for liking them. But with obviously Hojlund in his play style largely being like twerking on defenders and kind of falling over himself, and this is kind of rough and tumble style where he seems to come out the worst of it. Doesn't always look great, do you know what I mean? But but he still might end up finishing a season with 1 or 2 more goals than Zirkzee.
Yeah.
So that's why initially everyone thought was positive going into the season about the Hojlund and Zirkzee dynamic, because they're almost like 2 different profiles of players, and sometimes you do like having that bit of balance. But what we've ended up missing out on is main important job of his strikers is to score goals, and neither of them do that.
I'm going to say 2 things.
Yes.
We'll just get a bit of a poll going, see what the fan opinion
of course.
All right, like, I don't want to be nasty to the kid, because I do feel sorry for him. Like, do you think Hojlund will be here next season, or end of next season? Maybe stick that as a poll. Yeah. Also, as well, I know you was going to read it. Forgive me from jumping the gun, but I just thought it was quite telling what Amorim said, where he sort of spoke about working with him, didn't he? He said the only way I know is to work on him and show him the videos. Like you said, he needs to score a goal. This is obviously answering a question. If he's out of the team. And he won't, score if he's out of the team. So I tried to manage that during games. He needs to score, that's all, like a striker needs. I thought the point about work on him, show him the videos. Like, maybe this, Amorim's a coach. He's not just a manager, he's a coach. I think his actual title's a coach. Maybe he's just got to do that, because you haven't got a choice in Europe. Unless you're going to stick Bruno Fernandes up front, which we spoke about the other day, and it's like we need him elsewhere. You're going to have to rely on Rasmus Hojlund to a certain degree, even that is from the bench. Then you need to work on him. We need to get him going somehow, rather than just giving up now, because there's potentially 3 if we get through to the final big games this season, which could have massive repercussions for this football club.
There's a lot of things, obviously, that you can learn. There's things that you can't learn. But there's always an example of, let's say, movement in the box being something that you don't learn, or is harder to learn, or less strikers learn. It's kind of more of a, you see kids. I played with a lad at Sunday League, terrible level. He was just a really good finisher, and he just moved in the box differently to anyone else that I played with, anyone else I played against. He's never, he never went on to play or anything. He couldn't be asked for football by the time he was about 13. But even when we were 8, he was moving in the box and just getting half a step in a way that I never could or never did or not. Some players just have it immediately, and obviously these levels are a million miles above that. But sometimes players are just amazing at finding half a yard in the box, and some players just aren't. And maybe he's someone that never will be. But there are players that do get better at that. There are players that do get better at the things that you learn or you can't learn. Like, players do get better at finishing as they get older. Some do, some don't. But I think that to rule out any chance of him improving because he's 22 and he can't do X, Y, and Z yet, I think that's unfair. But again, for me to just assume he will improve, I'm not sat here doing that either. He might not, but I do think, like, ruling out that he could get any better, or ruling out that his positioning or movement or whatever could get better, it sounds like Cameron's trying to work on that. He's trying to show him video, he's trying to teach him different things. There's no reason why he just can't get any better at these things, but we do have to start seeing some evidence of it at some point, and maybe... Again, it's not going to be this season, is it? Let's be honest.
Well, this is my worry, because
you get another season.
If we get knocked out of the Europa League, and Rasmus Hojlund has a bad game or misses a chance or whatever, he's going to struggle to find the level of support you need as a Manchester United striker, because everyone's going to be like angry and devastated, and it's just going to be very, very hard for the lad. And I worry about him, and I feel sorry for him, but that's the cold hard truth of being a number 9 at Manchester United Football Club. Andy Martial was banging in goals until he wasn't, and then when he wasn't, he went on loan to Sevilla, came back, was injury stricken, and then before you know it, he's out the door when he's 27, 28. Marcus Rashford obviously didn't respond to what the manager wanted, but 27 years old, out on loan at Aston Villa. This is a lad who at one point we all thought might end up breaking Wayne Rooney's record. I know there's different reasons behind Mason Greenwood, but he got moved on when he had to get moved on. I agree with a lot of what Ronnie's saying. I get it. I just think, especially for this season, just now is the time for me personally, so when everyone can do what they want, just get behind him, try and get behind the lad, and try and hope that we can see some sort of response, because this season it could be seminal for the future. It really could.
It was an interesting point that Joe was making about obviously the movement, and all. There's been a mention of with the Hojlund thing, it's kind of connected to the whole potential Osimhen saga, and that is like a lot of casual watchers do throw criticisms at the type of strikers of like a Haaland and an Osimhen, where you see them and they miss sometimes, they're missing big chances and all this, and saying, they don't look clean and they're finishing and etc. And then at the end of the season, these end up being the type of strikers that have more goals than everyone else, because when you're talking about like Hojlund and his issues and his movement in the box, I always laugh when people look at stat sheets and they're saying Haaland and Osimhen and sometimes even Nunes, but obviously Nunes is a bit more of a lost cause, and like these strikers like Sammy, who are very box dominant players. The reason why they end up having more big chances missed and more chances missed is because they're getting on the end of things that other strikers don't.
Well said.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the element that people sometimes miss. Do you know what I mean? Osimhen and the likes of Haaland is they're getting on the end of things, and they're almost like creating opportunities for themselves with their like physicality and stuff that other strikers might not get to. Because you might play a through ball to Hojlund, and Hojlund doesn't have the physicality to get on the end of it, to muscle his defender off and go 1-on-1 with the keeper for that chance, whereas an Osimhen and a Haaland will. You got Harry Amas and Dorgu whipping crosses into the 6-yard box on the weekend. Hojlund doesn't seem to be in the right place at the right time, doesn't get there, wouldn't win the header anyway. But then you got someone like Haaland and Osimhen, they might get up there, they might bully a defender, they might get on the end of it 6 yards out, they might miss, but at least they've gotten on the end of it. But then people will say, do you know what I mean?
I get that point, because Andy Cole used to get criticism, and it was OCT, because he didn't miss 5 chances to score a goal. That's fucking idiotic. So what if he took all his chances, he'd have scored 1,000 goals or whatever? Like, but people say he misses chances, but he was there for those chances. And he
gets there.
He was there when, you know, other strikers were, and he also bagged shitload of goals and won the lot. Yeah. So I get your point, when I completely agree. I
think when a striker stops getting chances, that's when you should be concerned. Yeah. I think that's when the worry does come. Obviously, I'm not saying he should go and miss everything, but these strikers that you criticise sometimes, thinking their finishing isn't perfect, and sometimes it's like, because I feel like Haaland sometimes gets, he misses. Yeah. Because these monsters, they're getting on the end of things. They're getting 5 chances for a reason.
Osimhen's having 6.5 shots a game.
That's
absolutely crazy numbers. Yeah. That's insane. He's averaging 1 XG per game. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, if you can, and you couldn't just put me up front for Galatasaray or Napoli. I'm not getting 1 XG per game. You need someone whose movement or, you know, positioning or finishing or whatever it is world class, and they get in those positions over and over. And also, the players, it's like that whole thing of like, do you know most shark attacks take place in shallow water? Because that's where most humans are. Like, the reason why these strikers miss more big chances than any other is because they get the most chances. Yeah. It's not a criticism, like you said, Ron. It's almost a compliment. Lewandowski, I think it was, he always used to be at the top of like most chances missed in the season. It's because he's had 60 big chances and he scored 45.
And people try and discredit him as well, saying it's because they're playing for really good teams and they're getting this really good service. Obviously, there's a bit of some of there's element in that, but like Haaland has scored almost a goal a game for Salzburg, for Dortmund, for Norway. Even for Norway, he basically bags every game. It's obviously not just because he's playing for City and he gets loads of that's why I think that's what's propelled his goal scoring to like astronomical numbers, where it's like records we've not seen before. Yeah. Because you end up like combining the fact that he's this freakish almost XG chance generator with the fact that he's got some of the best players in the world giving him the service as well. But yeah, I think there's always, those strikers have a lot more value than people would like to admit, even though sometimes he can look a little bit unclean. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the technical ability, like Osimhen.
I think like even someone like Lukaku was heavily criticised. He's got almost 400 career goals, that guy. Like, you cannot do that if you're not a great striker.
People focus more on the chances that these guys miss than the actual goals that they're scoring.
And Lukaku is in a bracket below Haaland because in the biggest games against the biggest teams, he's consistently not done it. But he's still a fantastic striker.
I mean, what is it?
42, 90 goals for Belgium.
42 goals in 96 games for United. Yeah. And he wasn't a success. I think we can be honest about that. But people would kill for them numbers now.
It's the best failure we've had in about 10 years.
Look how he was vilified.
Yeah. Rasmus Hojlund having those sort of numbers now. We won't be having this podcast.
Kill for a 26-year-old Lukaku.
Let's have it right.
We've got a few super chats, and we're going to get into Wally of the week as well, and look at that poll. So we'll get through some of these. Akash Solomon says Hojlund needs a veteran number 9 to take him under his wing and take the pressure pressure off, but that goes against the Ineos buying philosophy. He needs a loan out elsewhere at this point. To be honest, I wonder who is talking to him in training. There's so much going on, and then I agree with what you said there, Akash. I wonder if my worry is that it might be too late. I just hope that he can turn it around. So there's two ways of looking at this poll. First of all is, do you think Hojlund will be here next season? We've put it in like you're almost predicting other people's opinions rather than giving your own there. Not should it be, it's do you think he will be? So there's two ways of looking at it. One is, the most popular answer is yes, 47%. So most commonly, so the options were yes, no, or loan. So yes, the most popular answer is he'll be here next season. Positive, great. The other way of looking at it is 53% of people haven't said yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They've either said no or loan.
Yeah.
So it seems as though it's very split, but I would say more people think he shouldn't be here than should, which again is just
says a lot, doesn't it?
It says a lot. Akash K, can we bring John Murtagh up? Mates rates, yeah, he's working at Atlanta now, isn't he?
He like the head of development at Atlanta or whatever it is? He's done well there, hasn't he?
After he bought Hojlund.
There's
Mate rate. So he's going to go to his new job for Atlanta and do a favour from a club that got rid of him.
Probably not.
And also
We could probably never buy from Atlanta
sabotage his own job.
Let's just never do anything
what I mean?
with John Murtagh ever again.
Yeah. Eminem 5533. Did we imagine he was a decent prospect last year? No, and that's what I'm still clinging on to, I think, a little bit.
Fair enough.
I think there's still a player there. Let's get into Wally of the week then. What are we saying, Jay? I'll start with you. Who's your Wally of the week?
I've kind of covered this several times, and I'll keep covering it. It's just all these knobheads who moan at United fans for getting excited about Thursday night.
That was weird.
It's just like, bro, I've been watching United 45 years. I've seen us lift Champions Leagues, 13 league titles, win the treble. I've seen everything as a United fan I could have ever imagined seeing. And I was buzzing like I've been buzzing almost before at Old Trafford on Thursday night. So anyone that's telling me, oh, you look how far you've fallen and all the rest of it, it's talking rubbish. Because I've seen it. We've won a lot. We have. I know we chant it, but it's true. We have won a lot. And that was magical. And you should be able to enjoy it. So I see people like moaning or whatever. I see fans of clubs who've never won out moaning out. I think they shut up.
And you just think like, obviously you wouldn't swap seasons, but most clubs haven't had a moment like that. Not just this season. For the last decade.
No, 3 goals in extra time. It's unheard of.
To save the season, potentially, a step closer to Champions League football, winning a trophy. And we were saying this before. It's absolutely mental that there's a possibility, and I don't know how great or small, that United play in the Champions League next season, having not finished in European places for 2 years. And somehow we're in the Champions League next season. That would be absolutely astonishing, wouldn't it? Ronnie, who's your Wally of the week?
I'll give it to Nemanja Matic. On the basis of he didn't end up having a last laugh as his team got knocked out, but he also didn't see a minute of the field.
That was weird. Why did he play? Does he normally play?
He does play.
Why was he in the presser and then not playing at all?
It felt like they just wanted him to do that. Like, you troll Onana and then that's your job done. It was so weird.
It was weird.
Yeah, and I don't really have a massive opinion on Matic. He was alright, United. It's not like he's a cult hero or I hate him. I don't really care. I just thought that was all a bit silly.
Yeah. I don't know who mine is, I think I feel like I still want to live on Thursday night.
Why not, man?
So maybe some of the Leon players, some of the celebrations, Cherky grabbing his knob and shaking it about and all that.
Apparently they're saying that wasn't even at the United. Was it even that game? But I'm not sure.
Really? Well,
I didn't notice any of that. I didn't. I saw it afterwards. Like people having to go to Nana for celebrating when we went 2-0 up, whatever. I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, that was a bit silly.
It was funny because when I went on my phone after the game, I'd seen a few messages during the game, but I properly caught up, and you just see like this the narrative of the game where I had loads of messages when I was going back in the group chats like, Amarim's done, this team's finished, it's all over. I'm not renewing. Like I'm done with football, and then you get to it and it's like, this is why we love football. This is amazing.
This is why you can never give up on this team.
I love this team. Harry Maguire building a statue is so mad.
Yeah,
but yeah, why not?
So yeah, I'll go with Cherky, for, and then also they subbed him off, didn't they? And then they lost. What a laugh!
Funny,
what a moment! It's a shame that we couldn't win at the weekend, so we could just talk about the Leon game all week. But yeah. Brilliant. Okay, get your thoughts in the comments then on Rasmus Hojlund. Is it his fault? Is he just not going to be the player we wanted him to be? Or are there other things and other factors that have led to him being in the place that he's in? And maybe we can rebuild him and bring him back to being the prospect that we signed. Ronaldo, great to see you. Thanks for coming on this bank holiday Monday. Thank you for coming in.
Above and beyond.
Jay, as always, fantastic to see you. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you in a bit.